Well, my brakes aren't braking anymore. It sounds like a good thing, but it's really a bad thing. These brakes are broken. Let's go and fix them. Hey guys, Octane Restorations, and we are back with our 1988 GL1500. This is part 8 in the series, Broken Brakes. Kind of sounds like an oxymoron, but these brakes, so we went ahead and replaced the pads. Now we need to go ahead and bleed them off and change the fluid. This fluid hadn't been changed in, I don't know, this bike's been sitting for at least 13 years, so at least that long. But let's go ahead and let's get to it. So this is the front brake master cylinder right there that is on the handlebar, and this controls the front right brake. On your front tire you have two brake rotors. You have a right and a left, a driver's side and a passenger side. You think of it in car terms, not a passenger on this, because that'd be front and rear. But your right hand side brake rotor is controlled by the lever on the handlebar. The left front brake rotor and caliper, it is controlled by the brake pedal. Honda did a linked brake system on this. Theoretically, you're supposed to get more smooth braking action, and it's supposed to help you not lock up your rear wheel if you have linked front and back brakes. So now we've got that cap off, we're going to go ahead and get some .4 brake fluid, and we're going to go ahead and start filling it up. As you can see, I have a multitude of towels underneath it. Brake fluid is very, very corrosive, so keep some shop towels underneath whatever you're working on, because it will eat paint in a matter of minutes. But let's go find some .4 brake fluid. I'm using .4 brake fluid, SuperTech brand. This one's from Walmart. This is what is recommended for this brake system. .3, .4, and .5.1 are all quote-unquote compatible with each other, though from a professional standpoint I would not recommend mixing any. They're rated on their evaporation points whenever they turn from a liquid to a gas. And .4 is the highest level brake fluid that is recommended in this system, so I'm going to stick with .4 brake fluid. Quick rundown how brakes work. So with brakes you have a lever and a caliper. A caliper houses the brake pads and it's got pistons inside there, and then your lever is either going to be a brake pedal or a handlebar lever. Whenever you push the foot lever or you pull the handlebar lever, the liquid does not get compressed, and so it pushes the pistons and the calipers out, which in turn pushes your brake pads against the brake rotors, and the friction slows your motorcycle down. If you had air in the lines, instead of pushing that fluid just to the piston, what would happen is it would actually compress. And whenever it compresses, it's not pushing the piston and the brake pads against the rotor, so you're not creating any friction to stop. That's what happens whenever you have air bubbles and your brakes feel spongy. All you're doing is you're compressing that air on the inside, and so you're actually not getting any stopping action. Another thing, brake fluid is hygroscopic, which means it loves water. It will actually pull water from the ambient air. Only use brake fluid from a sealed container, so always be sure to keep the cap on your brake fluid and don't let it sit for lengthy periods of time without it. But brake fluid loves water. It'll just take ambient moisture out of the air, and it can ruin your brake fluid. It mixes with the water, and then whenever you go to stop, the water has a lower boiling point than the brake fluid, and so it boils, creates the gas, and we get spongy brakes like I just mentioned. So be sure, keep all your caps on your brake fluid, and let's go ahead and let's get this one working. So, new brake fluid does not have that rich maple syrup color. Man, that looks good enough to put it on a pancake, doesn't it? but I would not recommend it. It would be detrimental to your health. And in this case, this dark fluid is detrimental to this motorcycle's health. Whenever it starts turning a brown, kind of starts looking like motor oil, it means it's either collected some dirt, debris, or some moisture from the air. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to completely flush this, and we're going to get some new clear fluid in there. Again, the handlebar brake, the front brake, is going to just control the front brake right rotor, so you don't got to worry about bleeding the other side. But a good thing with this one is you can use gravity to your advantage here, because that front right brake master cylinder is so far up above this, you know, gravity is going to pull the fluid down. So this is just your run-of-the-mill cheap fluid catcher. This is not a vacuum operated brake bleeder. All this is a tube and a canister, and it has a magnet on it actually. See that? We're getting fancy here. I got this from O'Reilly's for 15 bucks. This is not going to pull fluid into it, but we can use our good friend gravity here, which is what we're going to do. So we're not going to do the traditional method of brake bleeding right here. What we're going to do is we're just going to get an 8mm. We're going to open up that blade screw that is on the top of the caliper, and we're just going to let gravity do its thing. As you see, we do have fluid and some bubbles coming out, which is exactly what we wanted. Be sure, if you're going to do this, to check your fluid reservoir very, very often. You don't want to introduce any new air into the system. So we've got some fluid out, so we're going to go check our reservoir and just top it off if we need to. We're just going to speed it up a little bit right here. All I'm doing is letting the old fluid drain out. Once it gets pretty low, I'm just going to refill it with some new fluid, and we're going to try to dilute all that old fluid and get it out of here. As you can see in the bottom of the little canister, it is a dark amber color, and new fluid is generally clear with a light yellow tint. But we're just going to keep repeating this process and dumping out our little container. Again, be sure not to get brake fluid on anything and have a brake fluid safe container. You don't want something that you're going to pour the brake fluid in and then it's, you know, going to eat through the container. Milk jugs work great for this. So that next gallon of milk or gallon of water that you drink, you know, just save it. The good thing is it also comes with a cap. So you can put a cap on this used brake fluid. Really the only uses I've found for used brake fluid is some people use it as a rust removal agent. They'll use brake fluid and steel wool, and theoretically it works well. I've never used it. If you are going to try it, I would use gloves though. It is pretty corrosive. And the only other thing that I found for was paint removal, like on old toys, old metal toys. You know, they would rub the used brake fluid on the toys and it would remove the paint. It's that corrosive. So, you know, if one of those are your hobbies, you might try it. I've never tried it as a rust removal agent, but that's just one of the things I've read about it. I wouldn't burn it because it released some pretty nasty fumes, and it's technically not an oil, so some places probably won't let you put it in their used motor oil vats. So, but you can take it to some auto parts stores in a sealed container, and they should be able to dispose of it properly. At least the ones in my area will. So a lot of this is going to be the same stuff as we've been doing, just a lot of it. We need to get all of that old fluid out of there. So I'm just going to go ahead and speed this up for you. So we've got another canister full, and as you see, the color is getting better. It is lightening up and it's not near as dark as that other brake fluid we've already collected. So we are making progress. Again, I'm just going to carefully remove this, and if you are wearing gloves like I am, if you do get it on your gloves, the brake fluid, either wipe it off or take the gloves off and get new gloves so that way you don't accidentally touch something. But I would not recommend doing this with just your hands just because how corrosive it is. As you can see, we got all that old brake fluid out of the top, and so now we're just going to continue the process. This is the brake fluid now. As you can see, it is much lighter, and we are making lots of progress. So now we've went ahead and we've replaced all that old fluid. So now we're going to quote unquote bleed the brakes to get any air out of the line. As you see, the fluid is in good shape. That is the normal color. It's supposed to be clear with the yellow tinge. So now to actually bleed this brake, we are squeezing the brake lever right now, and we are getting a very firm pushback, which is exactly what you want. But if your brakes were spongy, we're going to show you how to fix it. Don't stand above this, because if you pull the brake lever pretty hard, it will shoot the fluid out. I can't tell you how much PSI it is making, but it's, you know, it's a decent amount. You're using a lever and you're getting some mechanical advantage going in your favor. But we are going to go ahead and we're going to bleed this. So to bleed this first, you want to pump up your brake lever till it is firm, and then you want to hold it in the compressed position. While it's held in the compressed position, you want to open your bleed screw. Fluid will shoot out of that bleed screw, and then you want to close the bleed screw, all while holding the lever compressed. And then once the bleed screw is closed, then you can release the lever. And then just keep repeating that process till all the air bubbles have gotten out and the fluid is the color you want. That's how you manually bleed a brake system. So again, you compress the lever, open the bleed screw while it's still compressed, and then you close the bleed screw after the fluids came out, and then you release the lever. I do want to tell you about something called speed bleeders. It's a bleeding screw that kind of has a one-way valve in it, so you can bleed these by yourself most of the time, unless you have like zip ties or something like that, or a clamp. It's going to be a one-person job. But those big clamps with the big handles on them, normally I can use those for these brake levers or zip ties and get it done myself. But that's all we got today, so thanks for watching. Next video is going to be doing the rear linked brake system, and it should be a little quicker. But this is Octane Restorations. You have a good rest of your day.